The massive holographic projection of High Commander Rixer filled the United Earth Council chamber, his crystalline features catching the light in ways that made him appear both beautiful and terrifying. The Zentari leader's voice resonated with the characteristic harmonic overtones of his species, but his message was anything but harmonious. "Your species has become a disruption to galactic order," Rixer declared, each word precisely measured. "Your rapid expansion, your unpredictable alliances, your democratic ideals." He spat the last words as if they were poison. "The Zentari Imperium cannot allow such chaos to continue. Submit to our guidance, or face extinction." Ambassador James Blackwood stood at the podium, his weathered face betraying none of the fury building inside him. At 63, he'd spent 4 decades in diplomatic service, negotiating humanity's place among the stars. But never had he faced such naked aggression from a major power. "The Council will need time to deliberate," he responded, his deep voice steady. The projection of Rixer flickered with what might have been amusement. "You have 48 Earth hours," the Zentari commander stated before his image vanished. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives from Earth's various regions shouted over each other, their fears and anger echoing off the curved walls. Blackwood remained still, his mind racing through possibilities, strategies, and potential outcomes. "Order." Director Naomi Tanaka's voice cut through the noise. The head of the United Earth Council stood, her small frame commanding attention. "Ambassador Blackwood, your assessment?" James took a measured breath. "The Zentari are not used to being refused. Their empire spans 17 star systems, all conquered through a combination of military might and political manipulation. They see our independent growth as a threat to their ordered universe." "Then perhaps we should show them why," General Marcus Rodriguez interjected from his seat in the military section. "Our fleet may be smaller, but our ships are more advanced. We've kept our latest developments hidden precisely for situations like this." "And risk full-scale war?" Minister Wei from the Asian coalition challenged. "The Zentari could glass our colonies before we could mount a proper defense." Blackwood raised his hand, silencing the brewing argument. "There's something else at play here. The Zentari pride themselves on efficiency. This ultimatum, it's theatrical. They're trying to provoke us into either submission or rash action." He turned to address the entire council, his voice taking on the quiet intensity that had made him legendary in diplomatic circles. "I propose we give them neither. I request permission to lead a delegation to the Zentari capital world of Crystallos. Not to submit, but to demonstrate why humanity cannot be handled like their previous conquests." "That's suicide," Rodriguez protested. "They'll either kill you or take you hostage." "No," Blackwood smiled slightly. "They'll receive us. Because their entire empire is built on the appearance of civilized behavior. To refuse diplomatic discourse would undermine their carefully constructed image of superior culture." Director Tanaka studied him carefully. "And what message do you intend to deliver?" "The truth. That humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and its own near extinction. We've faced natural disasters that would have broken lesser species, and we've emerged stronger each time. We're not just another conquest to be added to their collection. We're something they've never encountered before." The council chamber fell silent as his words sank in. Finally, Tanaka nodded. "You have authorization, Ambassador. But we'll position our fleet at strategic points throughout our territory. If diplomacy fails—" "It won't," Blackwood assured her, though they both knew it was far from certain. "Because we're going to show them something they've never seen before, a species that neither fears their strength nor requires it." As he left the chamber to prepare for his mission, Blackwood's mind turned to the challenge ahead. The Zentari understood power. They respected strength. What they failed to grasp was that humanity's greatest strength had never been in its weapons or technologies, but in its inexhaustible ability to face impossible odds with innovation, determination, and an unwavering spirit. He had 48 hours to make them understand that threatening humanity wasn't just a tactical error, it was a fundamental misunderstanding of what humans were capable of when pushed to the brink. The fate of Earth would rest not on the size of its fleet or the strength of its weapons, but on humanity's most powerful tool, the ability to turn apparent weakness into unprecedented strength. The Zentari diplomatic vessel loomed over Blackwood's shuttle like a crystalline predator. Its faceted surfaces reflected the light of distant stars, creating an ever-shifting kaleidoscope that was both mesmerizing and intimidating. As his small craft approached the designated docking bay, Blackwood studied the ship's design, noting how every aspect served both aesthetic and military purposes. "Final approach, Ambassador," Lieutenant Reese announced from the pilot's seat. The young officer's dark hands moved confidently over the controls, betraying none of the tension that must have been coursing through her. "They're scanning us." "Let them," Blackwood replied, straightening his formal diplomatic attire. "They won't find anything they don't expect to find." The weight of the quantum communicator in his collar felt reassuring, Earth's latest advancement in instantaneous communication, hidden in plain sight. The docking procedure was seamless, almost theatrical in its precision. As Blackwood and his small team of 3 emerged from their shuttle, they were met by a delegation of Zentari diplomats. Unlike High Commander Rixer's intimidating presence, these representatives had opted for a more approachable appearance, their crystalline forms softened by flowing robes that caught and diffused light. "Ambassador Blackwood," the lead diplomat's voice chimed like wine through crystal. "I am First Resonator Keelix. We are surprised by your decision to accept our invitation for direct dialogue." Blackwood smiled warmly, noting how the Zentari's use of the word invitation already represented a subtle shift from their earlier ultimatum. "The pursuit of understanding is a fundamental human trait, First Resonator. We would be poor representatives of our species if we declined an opportunity for peaceful discourse." As they were led through the ship's corridors, Blackwood observed everything. The Zentari's technological advancement was obvious, but so was their rigid adherence to hierarchy and order. Every crew member they passed moved with precise, predetermined efficiency. Every system seemed optimized for maximum performance with minimum variance. "Your vessel will reach Crystallos in 26 hours, Keelix announced as they were shown to their quarters. "High Commander Rixer looks forward to your perspective." Once alone, Lieutenant Reese activated their suite security countermeasures, another hidden advancement that would appear as simple diplomatic privacy protocols to Zentari sensors. "They're watching everything we do, sir." "Of course they are," Blackwood replied, removing his jacket. "Just as we're watching them. Dr. Patel, what have you observed so far?" The team's xenobiologist adjusted her glasses, a somewhat archaic gesture that belied her cutting-edge expertise. "Their biological efficiency is remarkable, Ambassador. But it's also their weakness. The Zentari have engineered themselves to near perfection, but they've sacrificed adaptability in the process." "Exactly," Blackwood nodded. "They've created an empire based on predictability and control. Humanity must appear chaotic to them, our diversity, our contradictions, our constant drive to change and evolve." He moved to the viewport, watching the stars streak by. "That's what truly frightens them." Back on Earth, Director Tanaka stood in the Strategic Command Center, watching as hundreds of small dots moved across the holographic display. "Status report," she commanded. General Rodriguez gestured at the map. "Our visible fleet remains in defensive positions around core colonies. The Phantom Fleet is in position, completely undetected by Zentari sensors. Project Prometheus is ready for activation if needed. The Zentari believe they're dealing with a relatively young, technologically inferior species," Tanaka mused. "How long have we maintained this deception?" "Since first contact," Rodriguez replied. "Earth's greatest defense has always been appearing less advanced than we are. The Centauri see our older ships, our apparent technological gaps. They don't see the quantum networks, the AI integrations, the breakthrough in consciousness transfer technology. And they must never see them unless absolutely necessary, Tanaka stressed. Humanity's strength isn't just in our hidden technologies, it's in our ability to hold back, to show restraint, to choose peace even when we could choose dominance. On the Centauri vessel, Blackwood prepared for sleep, knowing the next day would bring them to Kristallos. But first, he activated his quantum communicator with a subtle gesture. Message received, Ambassador, Director Tanaka's voice whispered in his mind. The pieces are in place. Remember, your mission isn't just to prevent war, it's to make them understand why starting one would be their greatest mistake. Understanding may be beyond them, Blackwood replied silently. They've spent millennia perfecting their society, their biology, their technology. The idea that strength can come from imperfection, that power can exist in chaos and diversity, it challenges everything they believe. Then perhaps it's time they learned a new way of thinking, Tanaka suggested. Show them who we really are, Ambassador. Show them why humanity's greatest weapon has always been its ability to surpass its own limitations. As Blackwood drifted off to sleep, he contemplated the delicate dance ahead. Tomorrow, he would begin the process of either preventing a war or ensuring that if one came, the Centauri would face an enemy unlike any they had encountered in their long history of conquest, an enemy that had spent centuries appearing weaker than they were, precisely so they would never have to prove how strong they could be. Kristallos gleamed like a fractured diamond against the void of space. As their shuttle descended through the atmosphere, Blackwood watched crystalline spires pierce through iridescent clouds, their surfaces refracting sunlight in complex patterns that seemed to form a language of their own. Beautiful, Dr. Patel breathed, her scientific detachment momentarily forgotten. Their entire civilization is a testament to order and symmetry. And therein lies their vulnerability, Blackwood replied softly. Perfect crystals shatter. It's the imperfect ones that bend. The landing pad they were directed to sat atop the highest spire of the Central Harmony complex. As they disembarked, Blackwood noticed subtle differences between the Centauri gathered to receive them. Some crystals showed slight variations in color, in pattern, hints of individuality fighting through centuries of enforced uniformity. High Commander Rixer awaited them in a vast chamber whose walls seemed to pulse with living light. His crystalline form towered over the human delegation, engineered to project authority and power. But Blackwood's trained eye caught something else, microscopic fractures in the commander's otherwise perfect surface. You come to discuss terms of submission? Rixer's harmonics filled the chamber. No, Blackwood replied simply. We come to prevent a mistake. A discordant note entered Rixer's voice. You dare. We dare much, Blackwood interrupted, causing several Centauri to vibrate in shock at the breach of protocol. Including telling you truths your empire needs to hear. Your scans of our vessel revealed exactly what you expected to find. Did you ever ask yourself why? In the shadows of the chamber, Second Resonator VYX felt her crystalline structure vibrate with suppressed tension. For centuries, she had watched her people's obsession with perfection slowly calcify their ability to grow, to adapt. This human's words echoed her own carefully hidden doubts. Meanwhile, aboard the cloaked Earth vessel, Prometheus, Captain June Park received a quantum transmission from home. Director Tanaka, we're in position. The Centauri remain unaware of our presence. Maintain surveillance, Tanaka ordered. But be ready. Ambassador Blackwood's next moves will either prevent a war or start one. Either way, humanity is done hiding. Back in the chamber, Blackwood continued. Your empire sees chaos in our diversity, weakness in our disagreements. You've spent millennia engineering these traits out of your species. But consider this, every major breakthrough in human history came from someone who dared to break from uniformity, to think differently, to challenge the established order. And look where it has led you, Rixer countered. Your worlds are messy, your governance inefficient, your progress unpredictable. Exactly, Blackwood smiled. We are unpredictable. Did you never wonder why a species as primitive as ours could expand so quickly? Why our apparent technological gaps never seem to slow our progress? Why species far more advanced than us choose to ally with Earth? For the first time, uncertainty rippled through Rixer's perfect form. Behind him, VYX moved slightly forward, her voice adding a new harmony to the discussion. High Commander, perhaps we should. Silence. Rixer's command cracked through the air like breaking glass. But Blackwood had seen it, the fractures in the Zentari's perfect facade were spreading. Your empire isn't truly united, is it? Blackwood pressed. There are those among you who question the path of engineered perfection. Who recognize that true strength comes not from eliminating chaos, but from learning to thrive within it. VYX stepped fully into the light now, her crystalline form refracting different colors than her peers. The human speaks truth we have long denied, High Commander. Our drive for perfection has become our prison. The chamber erupted in discordant harmonies as factions within the Zentari leadership faced off. Blackwood stood calmly at the center of the storm he had unleashed, knowing that aboard the hidden Prometheus, humanity's most advanced weapons remained ready, not to destroy, but to defend if needed. Your species faces a choice, Blackwood's voice cut through the chaos. Not between submission and extinction, but between stagnation and growth. Humanity doesn't fear war, High Commander. We fear the absence of change, the death of diversity, the end of evolution. Your threatened war wouldn't just be fought with weapons, but with ideas. Are you prepared for that kind of battle? The fractures in Rixer's surface spread visibly now, physical manifestations of the philosophical earthquake shaking his worldview. The perfect order of the Zentari Empire faced its greatest challenge not from humanity's weapons, but from the power of its ideas. And in the tense silence that followed, both species stood on the brink of either enlightenment or annihilation, waiting to see which path the Crystal Empire would choose. The crystalline chamber had become a battlefield of ideologies. High Commander Rixer's surface now displayed a web of fractures, each one reflecting the deep divisions spreading through Zentari society. Second Resonator VYX had been joined by others, younger Zentari whose forms showed subtle variations, hints of evolutionary change that centuries of engineered perfection had tried to suppress. You speak of choice, Rixer's voice held a dangerous edge, while sowing discord among my people. This is why your species must be contained. Your ideas spread like a virus, corrupting order itself. Blackwood maintained his calm demeanor, even as he noticed more Zentari military units entering the chamber. Ideas only spread when they find fertile ground, Commander. Your people aren't being corrupted, they're awakening to possibilities they've always known existed. A sudden alert pierced the tense atmosphere. A Zentari communications officer crystallized into the chamber, their form vibrating with urgency. High Commander. We've detected anomalies throughout our defense grid. Unknown energy signatures are. Now you show your true nature, Rixer thundered. Your words of peace mask acts of aggression. No, Blackwood replied firmly. We're showing you the difference between having power and needing to use it. Those anomalies are Earth ships, yes, vessels that have been in position since before our arrival, using technology you believed beyond us. We could have attacked at any time. Instead, we chose dialogue. Director Tanaka's voice whispered in Blackwood's mind through the quantum link, the Phantom Fleet is being detected, as planned. Prometheus reports increasing energy signatures from Zentari weapon systems. Your interference ends now, Rixer declared. Guards, take them. But before the guards could move, VYX and her followers positioned themselves between the humans and their would-be captors. Stop. Her harmonics resonated with authority that surprised even her. Look at what we've become, so afraid of change that we would destroy those who simply show us a different path. They show us weakness. Rixer countered. No, Blackwood's voice carried across the chamber. We show you evolution. Your empire is built on the assumption that perfection is strength. Humanity's history proves otherwise. We've survived and thrived precisely because we're imperfect, because we change, adapt, grow. Your scans never detected our advanced ships because you weren't looking for them. You saw what you expected to see, a younger, weaker species. The chamber's walls began to pulse with warning lights as more Zentari ships detected Earth's hidden fleet. But something else was happening too. Throughout the chamber, younger Zentari were displaying increasingly varied colors and patterns, their forms shifting in ways that had been engineered out of their species centuries ago. This is who we are, Blackwood continued, his voice gaining strength. A species that thrives on diversity, that gains strength from difference, that finds unity not in uniformity but in the celebration of variety. Your empire fears this because it represents everything you've sacrificed in pursuit of perfection. VYX stepped forward, her crystalline form now shimming with colors that would have been considered heretical hours earlier. High Commander, look at us, look at your people. The changes you fear are already within us. They always have been. These humans haven't corrupted us, they've reminded us of who we once were. The chamber had become divided, literally and figuratively. On one side stood Rixer and the old guard, their perfect crystalline forms now seeming rigid and lifeless. On the other, VYX led a growing number of Zentari whose surfaces rippled with previously suppressed variation. Director, Blackwood subvocalized through his quantum link, are the ships in position? Yes, Tanaka replied. But Ambassador, we're detecting something extraordinary. The energy patterns of the younger Zentari, they're changing. Evolution isn't just a metaphor anymore. Blackwood allowed himself a small smile. The true battle wasn't being fought with ships or weapons, but in the hearts and minds of a species remembering that perfection wasn't the absence of flaws, but the acceptance of change itself. Your next move, High Commander, Blackwood addressed Rixer, will determine not just the fate of our species, but the future of your own. Will you wage war against change itself? Or will you remember that even crystals must grow to survive? The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, waiting for an answer that would reshape the galaxy itself. High Commander Rixer stood motionless, his crystalline form catching and refracting the tension in the chamber. The fractures across his surface had spread into a complex web, like a visual representation of the breaking point facing Zentari civilization. Around him, the chamber had become a living demonstration of evolution in action, dozens of younger Zentari displaying colors and patterns that hadn't been seen in their species for generations. Look at what you've done, he directed at Blackwood, his harmonic voice carrying both accusation and something else, a note of wonder. Centuries of perfection, undone in hours. Not undone, Blackwood corrected gently. Transformed. Your people aren't becoming imperfect, Commander. They're becoming alive. The quantum link in Blackwood's mind hummed with Director Tanaka's voice. Ambassador, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations throughout the Zentari fleet. But, they're not weapon signatures. Something else is happening. Across the crystalline city, reports were flooding in of unprecedented changes. Young Zentari were spontaneously expressing traits that had been engineered out of their species, not just cosmetic variations, but fundamental shifts in their crystalline structure. The rigid hierarchy that had defined their civilization for millennia was literally crystallizing into something new. VYX approached her commander, her form now shimmering with deep blues and purples that seemed to move like waves through crystal. High Commander, the humans have given us a gift we didn't know we needed. The gift of remembering who we were, and who we could become. And what of order? Rixer demanded, but his voice carried less certainty now. What of the perfection we have spent generations achieving? Perhaps, Blackwood suggested, true perfection isn't about eliminating flaws, but about finding strength in how we overcome them. Humanity didn't survive countless challenges because we were perfect. We survived because we could adapt, change, evolve. Because every time we faced extinction, we found a new way to live. The chamber's walls pulsed with incoming data as more reports flooded in from across Centauri space. On ships, colonies, and outposts, the younger generation was undergoing a transformation that couldn't be stopped, wouldn't be stopped. The empire built on uniformity was becoming a kaleidoscope of variation. Director, Blackwood subvocalized, "Status of our fleet?" "Holding position," Tanaka replied. "But Ambassador, the Centauri ships, they're powering down their weapons." "All of them." Rixer must have received the same reports. His perfect posture seemed to soften, the fractures in his surface catching light in new ways. "You never intended to fight us with weapons, did you, Ambassador?" "No," Blackwood acknowledged. "Because we understood something your empire had forgotten. The most powerful changes don't come from external force, but from internal transformation. We didn't need to defeat you. We just needed to remind you of who you could be." VYX stepped forward, addressing both her commander and the chamber at large. "For centuries, we believed that perfection meant eliminating chaos, suppressing variation, engineering away change itself. But look at us now. We are becoming something new, something that combines the strength of our crystalline nature with the adaptability we once possessed." The chamber hummed with harmonic agreement as more Centauri embraced their emerging changes. Even some of the older generation were showing signs of transformation, their rigid forms beginning to display subtle variations. "And so," Rixer said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of historical change, "we face a choice that is not really a choice at all. For how can we wage war against the future without destroying ourselves in the process?" Blackwood nodded, understanding the magnitude of the moment. "Earth extends its hand in partnership, High Commander. Not as conquerors or conquered, but as two species discovering new ways to evolve together." The quantum link buzzed one final time. "Ambassador," Tanaka's voice carried a note of triumph, "the Centauri fleet, they're arranging themselves in the traditional formation of welcome. We've done it." In the chamber, Rixer made a gesture that sent ripples of light cascading through the crystalline walls. "The Centauri Empire, no, the Centauri Federation welcomes this new chapter. Ambassador Blackwood, you came here expecting to prevent a war. Instead, you have helped birth a renaissance." As the chamber erupted in harmonious celebration, Blackwood allowed himself to fully relax for the first time since this mission began. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge not through force of arms, but through the power of its most fundamental truth, that true strength lies not in eliminating differences, but in embracing them. The galaxy would never be the same. And that, after all, was the most human outcome of all. End of story.